Hello, fellow YouTube. What's going on, amigos? This is Gamers Guidance. If you guys don't know what Gamers Guidance is, it's my stream talk show where I go ahead and talk about certain different topics. Come up with a topic every single time I go live, and I try to get my chat and my community to weigh in and give their opinions as I give mine. If you guys want to join the fun in the talk shows, you can follow me at www.twitch.tv/blindgamer102. I do this every time I stream, most of the time, just trying to do my best because I want to make sure that I research the topics as well as provide good quality content for you guys to share your opinions. And it's a safe space and safe environment to share the opinions. No judges, no judgment, no anything like that, as long as you're being respectful. Okay? So today I really want to talk about something that is really very, very important to me as far as it's more opinionated and more biased because I see a lot of this happen. Right, E3 just happened, um, and so many people are like E3 was underwhelming, which it was. I agree, E3 was underwhelming. I really don't think that this E3 was going to be that great because of of what happened in our world. But it's E3 in general is for a while now. I stopped really following it. The only time I do like show up for the conferences is for just to kind of watch the showcase with friends and hang out. That's all I do, and that kind of segues perfectly into the topic of expectations. Right, expectations is kind of a slippery slope. It's pretty dangerous when you consider it, right? Because what is expectations in its most simplistic form, right? It's what you're looking forward to or what bar you set depending on what you're looking at. So if I have high expectations for a game, a product, a person, relationships, it doesn't matter. You're going to have the bar that's set way up here. Well, you can't even get your chin up over the bar. How are you expecting other people to do so, right? So expectations itself is, I like to say, with everything of substance, good in moderation. So having high expectations isn't inherently a bad thing, right? That's inherently a good thing. Having high expectations, it means you're excited. It means you're willing to look at something and you're like, you know what, these people or this person or this product did me well in the past. They're coming out with a sequel. They're coming out with a new thing. This company's really did well done. I'm looking forward to this. Absolutely, good on you, fantastic. But again, we talk about a lot of this stuff in my chat is have realistic viewpoints, right? And I'm not saying like be a realist because par my opinion, obviously, I really don't think you could be a realist. That doesn't exist. I mean, the point of being realistic exists, but everything has a negative and a positive, right? It's negative and positive by nature. But you can have a viewpoint that's a realist viewpoint on it. You can be an optimist with a realistic point of view, or you be a pessimist with realistic points of views, right? So you can look at the other side and you can say, okay, this is inherently a good thing, but something bad can happen like that. That makes sense to me. That's perfectly logical. So I treat that with expectations, right? One of my old wrestling coaches said it very well when I was in high school. You're only as good as your next match, and what that means in short,
SCRG1218 said. What coach?
uh, co-
SCRG1218 said. LOL /.
Coach Varner. Coach Varner said this. Serge was on the team at the point. You're only as good as your next match. And what that means is that you really, you take what you've learned in your past, right? Because that's all how we play sports and how we do things, right? We want to make sure that we always improve. You want to take things from your past. You want to take things from your past matches, your past experiences, but you don't want to let them drive you. You want to learn from them and help them guide you. Don't let them drive you, right? So being as good as your next match, it just all that means in its most simplest form is Go out there and do your best, or go out there and hope for the best and do the best that you can, right? So that is a surefire baseline expectation, is I'm going to do my best, because that is something that you can control for yourself, right? You do any situation, you go out, you expect to do your best, you give it your all, you can essentially control that expectation. That's a realistic expectation, and it's a realistic goal to have. That's perfectly, absolutely normal, right? But here's where the line in the sand gets a little bit drawn, okay? Is a lot of people do this with games, hence Gamers Guidance. They put unrealistic expectations about a product or about a game, and even though the game is inherently good, right? So let's just say the social media sphere and critics and reviewers alike agree that it's a good game, but the person who put that expectation doesn't like it because they're like, well, it's not what I wanted. Okay, but did you make the game? No. And I understand it's not what you wanted. I understand that it's not what you know you envisioned, but that doesn't inherently make it a bad product or a bad thing, right? And your thought process isn't bad. It's just a little bit misguided, because you can have your expectations based off anything in the world, whether it's past, you can make them up, and this goes with everything in a human's mindset, right? They look at a negative and they're like, okay, how can I do better? At least that's how you should think. How can I do better on this negative? They look at a positive, how can I keep the positive going, right? Those are the inherent like baseline mindsets that we have. So when they see a good product, like let's just Bloodborne, right? Bloodborne comes out, it's an amazing game. Because it is. It's a really good game. It's really well done. From Software did a great job on it. Criticisms aside, right? You can criticize anything, but overall, it's a very enjoyable experience. Let's just say they announced Bloodborne 2. Now, are you going to have the same realistic expectations you had when you first saw Bloodborne? Absolutely not, because Bloodborne was a new title, and then now there's a sequel to that title, right? So you're like, well, the first one was good, so that means the second one should be better. I think that's a dangerous road to go down, because you're already setting the bar. The bar was here, right? It was like really low because you didn't know what is going on. And now your past experiences tell you, hey, there's a sequel to this really fucking good game. Now the bar, instead of being here or here, it's now up here for you, right? It's higher than what it would have been had you not played Bloodborne 1. Still would have been down here. Like, it's a good game. I've heard of it, whatever, right? But if you're a fan of the game, it's now up here. Same with me for Zelda, right? Any Zelda that comes out, my bar it starts up here, because I know what a Zelda game is. I'm a super fan of Zelda. So instead of my bar being lower and being more, I guess, akin to realistic or give room for marginal error, it goes up here, like in this sphere, right? So your margin of error is now smaller, right? So because if you're already having a high expectation because you remember, like, nostalgia plays a factor, your own memories play a factor, the times and the feelings, you want to go back to that. So your bar is here, whether you want it to be or not, whether you think so or not, unless you cognitively understand, okay, I know the first Bloodborne was great, but let's see how they market it. Let's see how they present it, and let me see how it's going to shape out, right? That is take a step back and take an observant approach. Because you do that, your expectations start to become tailored to what actually is on the screen or what actually is presented to you versus hoping and praying. Because hoping and praying, you could get what you want, absolutely. But if you don't, who is that really realistically going to affect? It's going to affect you. It's going to affect your mood. It's going to affect something like that. Well, it wasn't what I wanted. Okay, but whose fault is that? If you had to cast blame on overhyping something for yourself, and maybe the media does it. The media does this all the time. It overhypes it. It overdoes this because marketing strategies, business strategies, of course, they want to sell a bunch of games or a bunch of different products at once, right? So everything with that, like marketing hype, is a real thing. Okay. But if you can take a step back from that and really like tailor the expectations to your personal self, I guarantee a lot of products will open up to you, because now you're looking at to what they offer. And if they offer something that's objectively bad, criticize it. Right? If they offer something that's not for you, criticize it. Criticize it and say, you know what? Hey, listen, this is still a good product for what it is, but here are my points of criticism, and it's constructive, right? Instead of saying this is a bad game, or this is a bad phone, or this is bad food. That saying this is bad blank doesn't tell anybody anything. It just says it's bad. It's inherently bad. It's like, why is it bad? Is it bad because you think it's bad? Is it overcooked? Is it unfinished? Does it break? Like, those are the things you have to think about. And I think we get lost in our own emotions, especially if our expectations are way up here and we're like, man, it's going to be a great game, and it's going to be perfect, and your mindset's already kind of rolling with that hype and rolling with that expectation and rolling with that general excitement, and then it falls flat. Maybe it's not here, but maybe it's like here, right? Maybe it's a good game, it's passable, you can play it and enjoy it, but it wasn't everything you've ever wanted. Well, some people just can't control that, right? I'm not saying that you chat can't. I'm just saying some people out there, you've seen it on a lot of people, like review bombing or anything like that. They're just like, this is a bad game because it didn't do this right. Okay, but it did everything else correctly. Yeah, but it didn't do this, and this, so therefore it's a bad game. That's not constructive. That's saying you suck because you didn't do what I wanted to do, what I wanted in the game. Well, maybe that's not the art direction. Maybe that's not the way somebody wanted to go with it. Maybe they wanted to take a different approach. We don't know. We're not the artist. We're not the designer, right? Making video games is hard, and I stick to the video game topic because Gamer's Guidance, obviously, but it's probably the most influential to me. It's also the easiest example that I can come up with, because games themselves are always trying to raise the bar. They're always trying to raise something higher, and they always try to outdo each other, and sometimes games fall flat. Now, don't misconstrue what I'm trying to say, chat, right? Don't misconstrue saying that you shouldn't criticize. Keep your expectations at a moderate level. Don't keep them low, and I'll get into that in a second. Keep them at a moderate level to where you're excited, genuinely excited, looking for something, looking forward to something. Keep your interest alive, but don't be so blinded that you're not going to fairly criticize it, because there are mistakes that people make. People can do things one way. You can find a more efficient solution. Offer that, right? That is not the point that I'm trying to make. What I'm saying is expectations, tailor them down a little bit, and don't let them blind you. You can even go to the opposite spectrum. They're so high and you're such a fan that they could do everything wrong, and you're like, you know what? But I love the game, so it's what I want. But you should still offer a point of criticism, right? So expectation, again, like we said at the beginning of this conversation, slippery slope, right? Because the people are going to be like, well, Blind Gamer said, don't keep my expectations really high, so I'm not going to do it, and then I'm not going to criticize anything. No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying keep it realistic. Be optimistic, right? Be proud of the things that you like Halo or any franchise or anything that if you're Android, Apple, whatever, be proud of like the products that you're using, stand by them if you really enjoy them. But understand that the people who are making those products are human, and understand that those people will make mistakes, and offer constructive criticism. I think the phrase is, you attract, what is it? You attract bees better with honey than vinegar, something like that. So the sweeter you are, and the more calm, the more calm of a demeanor you have, you're going to attract better people because of that, because they're going to want to listen to you. If you're angry and you're bitter and you're sour and you're upset and you're shouting, yeah, you may have good points, but nobody's going to want to listen to that because they don't want to be yelled at. They're probably already receiving thousands upon thousands of different criticisms, and they have to listen to thousands upon thousands of negative comments, or some positive comments, sure. But people are still people. We still are human. We make mistakes. We let our emotions get the better of us. But horrible segue, but let me flip to the other side, right? So we're talking about keeping your expectations really high. Well, what happens when you keep them low? The saying is, well, I don't have any expectations, so anything that's going to happen is good. Okay, that's fine. That's a fair point. If you can keep that mindset and still have interest, by all means, go ahead and do it. But I'd argue to have some expectation. Don't go into having none, because if you have none, yeah, of course you're gonna just be like, well, I didn't have an expectation, and it was an okay game,
said, right? I feel like I generally have low expectations.
Right. Having low expectations is fine, but if you can keep them to like I said, Roman, I don't know if you just got here or if you were listening, but have some marginal room for error, right? Up here is okay. Up here is like, you're kind of getting into the territory. You're kind of at a mid-level here, right? Your expectations are here, and then you don't want to be in the negative space, right? So low expectations are great. No expectations, I feel like that's you're only hurting yourself at that point, because now you're not gonna your interest dies off, right? Even though you say it doesn't, your interest in itself will die off when it comes to, again, let's point to the gaming sphere. Well, I'm not interested in that anymore. I was interested, but they've done me wrong so many times. I'm not interested anymore. Again, that's your past driving you, not guiding you. We want the past to guide us, not drive us, right? We want to take those life lessons, those values, those whatever you want to take those into consideration and help us make better decisions for the future, right? So low expectations, absolutely fine, because you're like, okay, they did something horribly bad last time. I won't really drive up my expectations that they're going to do better. That's a realistic point. That's understandable. Having an optimistic viewpoint as far as a realistic viewpoint, be like, I hope they do better. I want them to do better, but based on what I've heard and what I've seen in the past, maybe they won't. That's a low expectation, but then you still keep an eye on it, right? You're still kind of there. You're taking a look at the next game or the next sequel or the next product coming out, and you keep a mild interest. Now, if you lose all interest, if they lose you as a consumer or as a person, because this can tie into relationships as well. If they lose you as a person, then by all means, whatever. You don't care about that person anymore. You don't care about that product. Expectation at that point doesn't matter, right? Like, expectation will just kind of go out the window because you don't care. You really don't. So why have expectations for something that you don't care about? Unless you expect them to fail, but then what kind of person are you, right? So having a low bar of expectation, completely okay, because now you're going to be like a wait and see attitude. Am I telling you that that if you have a low expectation, you shouldn't pre-order the game? No, you do what you want. But if you want to take that wait and see attitude and be like, is it good? What are people saying about it? What are people doing about it? And then ultimately, don't let other people form an opinion for you. That includes me. Don't let me form an opinion for you. You're a person. You're a human. You have your own thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Form a fucking opinion for yourself. Like, understand what I'm telling you is to bring this a little bit to light, is that I feel that people make this mistake all the time. Well, it wasn't what I wanted. Well, okay, who cares what you want? Who really does? Like, the people around you, family members, right? They might, but a complete stranger isn't going to care what you want. Like, if I tell you chat on stream, you know, I want this. You guys may care, but some random stranger that comes into my chat that doesn't know me, they're going to be like, why do I care about what Blind Gamer wants? You shouldn't. You shouldn't tailor that, because the thing is like, you don't know me. You don't know anybody else. So, of course, companies are not going to care what you wanted. They're going to present what they have. They're going to listen to the community, but they're not going to listen to you. You see the difference here? You are part of a community. You're a collective, which is, it sucks to say that, but you are. You're part of a collective to a company. You're a statistic. You're a number. You're something that, you know, you're a consumer. You spend your money. So of course they're going to listen to the community, but they're not going to listen to you as an individual. So you need to understand that and tailor your expectations to that, because you can't have so many personal expectations driving it up here, because how are they going to meet those unless they are talking directly to you and being like, Roman, we're making the next game. What do you want in all that game? And you can list out the expectations and they can check mark them all down. And then there you go. They made a game for you. No, they have to make a game for the majority, right? What is Blind Game? What does Xavier want? I want a game that's fully accessible with screen reading capability, colorblind mode, large text font, zoom. I want all that. Okay? But that's not the majority, right? So expectations can be down here, right? I expect games to be great. I expect them to be the best that they can be. And I think that's kind of the life lesson, right? Is what I said before, is expecting to do your best and expecting the best of things, and having a hope and having a very observant nature, saying, hey, I saw that they did great last time. I hope they continue. I'm looking forward to see what they have next. Those are cool. Those are very, very neutral, very easy expectations, and have your little bit of objectivity, right? Be like, well, I want this for the next game. Like, for example, Monster Hunter. I want them to create a new weapon. It'd be really cool if they did this. I don't think they will, but if they do, it'll be awesome. That's fine. That's an expectation you have. It's a realistic one. You're like, if they do, great. If they don't, I'm still going to play the game. It keeps you grounded. It keeps you in a sense of like, it's not going to disappoint you at all fronts. It's not going to you're not going to let those expectations kind of guide your emotions and let them go haywire, right? When the game could be everything that you could want or not. And a lot of people do that, right? A lot of people are like, well, they did this so many times.
Said, what about rollback netcode expectations?
Rollback netcode expectations, right? Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned that, right? So there is fact behind that. There is fact that rollback netcode is better than delay-based netcode. It has been proven. Okay, so when there is fact behind something, or something that needs to be implemented in, then that expectation should be at the forefront. But even then, right? That is an expectation that's right here. That's baseline, right? You expect there in a game, right? In a game that fits a genre, that fits a stereotype, that fits something. You want a single player title that's story driven, that has elements of a game. You need there to be like audio settings. Those are all baseline games. You need it to work, right? Those are all baseline expectations. Rollback in fighting games, baseline expectation. People would disagree, but there is actual data out there to prove that rollback is better for fighting games online, right? It's like saying, like what Capcom did. Hey, we're not going to add an arcade mode. What the hell? Everybody lost their shit for Street Fighter V when they didn't have a viable arcade mode or a single player, because that is ingrained as an expectation. That has happened for so many years going down the line, that fighting games come with an arcade mode, a training mode, a tutorial mode, and online, right? There are baseline expectations that everybody just has. Those are good.
Said, frame data.
Frame data? Again, that that is another expectation, because again, well, I guess it depends, right? Who cares about frame data? We do. Fighting game players. I can tell you right now, Surge don't give a fuck about frame data. I can tell you right now, any other casual player is not going to give a fuck about frame data. We care about frame data. It's exactly what I was saying before.
SCRG1218 said. LUL.
Right. It's like
SCRG1218 said. I don't even know.
exactly. You don't even know what frame data is. So it's like what I said before, Roman, is that I want specific things in a not just fighting games, in any game. I want screen readers. I want colorblind correction. I want subtitles for the hard of hearing, which are they should be implemented, correct? But again, people with disabilities are not the majority. They want to make sure their game works. So frame data in fighting games, the most competitive people are going to care about that stuff. And what do people do? They do what I do. They figure it out. Not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing, but they do it, right? Would it be easier and would it be convenient for a developer to put frame data in a fighting game? Absolutely. Would we want it? Absolutely. But the casual market out there isn't going to care. Like the majority of people who are playing fighting games aren't going to care, because fighting games are in themselves are niche. They're niche. And then the competitive scene is a niche within a niche, right? Because like, what do casual players care about? They care about the story mode. They care about the arcade mode. They care about most likely the mission modes or something like the challenge modes or whatever it is, right? That's what they care about. And Maximilian dude has done many topics on this on this very subject when it comes to fighting games. The competitive scene, that's what we care about. We care about frame data. We care about hitboxes. We care about spacing and neutral and execution and all this other crazy stuff. Somebody like Surge, he just wants to get in there and press buttons with his friends. Right? So to a group of people, it's a collective expectation, right? That's a baseline expectation that a group of people have. It's like the niche fighting game community, they want rollback netcode. They want frame data. I wouldn't say rollback netcode. Rollback netcode is just good for everybody. It's good for the casual scene. It's good for the fighting game scene. Crossplay is also in there. Crossplay, rollback netcode is just good for everybody, because if you have good online, more casuals will be brought in. I think that can tie into the general expectation. But the niche expectation, where we start kind of climbing a little bit, right? So as I said before, if we're looking at, I need like a visual graph or whatever, but we're here, right? The baseline, and then that's like rollback netcode, online, hopefully crossplay sooner or later starts to become like an actual implementation. Lobby systems are working. And all these things that Sajam and everybody has talked about, those start to become here, right? But then you want frame data, you want hitboxes, you want really good training mode, you want all this. Now it starts to come up a little bit. And the thing is like the casual scene isn't going to care if there's a fully featured training mode, because they're not going to know how to use it. They're not going to care about frame data because they don't even know what it is. They don't care about hitboxes because they don't know what they are. They're still struggling with a fucking Shoryuken motion or a quarter circle back, quarter circle forward, right? Not saying that casual players can't learn, especially if you start to get a gain in interest. And you could argue, which I could play the devil's advocate, saying that if a fighting game has all this stuff, has rollback, has crossplay, has frame data, has hitboxes, all the tools are there for a casual to just say, okay, I have everything in one package. Now I can just research and do everything that I can do. But again, there are people out there that already do this. There are the scientists like you, Roman. You're a technical person. Sam D, Info. You guys are all the scientists that care about this stuff, and more power to you that you guys put it out there for people to absorb and to take in, right? All this stuff, having within the game makes it easy.
Said, I only care about numbers.
Right. Exactly. And you're really good at it, right? But if and I keep bringing Sergio into this, but the thing is like Serge is a very casual fighting game player. He don't know what frame data is. He doesn't know that if we didn't even talk about frame data, he wouldn't even know what it is. I would have to sit down and actually explain it to him, right? Which is a part of the learning process for fighting games. Do I agree that frame data should be in? Yeah, because I'm a fighting game player. I'm a competitive fighting game player. I want frame data. That is one of my expectations. But let's roll it back. Let's roll back netcode this shit. My expectation is still here, right? I want frame data. If it has frame data, great. If it doesn't, I already know people like Roman, Samuel D, Inful, they're going to find this shit out, right? So that's going to happen. Now, is that an excuse for companies not to do it? No. To me, no, absolutely not. They should put frame data in. But again, it's still an expectation. It doesn't mean companies have to meet that. And that will kind of gauge whether you play. If it gauges whether you play a fighting game or not, that's kind of where I have an issue. If a fighting game doesn't have something like frame data in it, are you going to play it? Yes or no? Frame data is something that is still pretty niche. Now, if a company's making you pay for it, like a certain game that I know, that's a bit of a stretch there, pal. But if they just didn't implement it,
said $2 frame data DLC.
Yeah, right. That is where I draw a hard line. You're drawing a no. You shouldn't charge me for frame data.
T-Vixarbitrage said, "Hey, putting it in the game ain't free."
Yeah, it's not free. People have to work on it.
T-Vixarbitrage.
That's true.
Said, "Devs trying to feed their kids."
Yeah, they can feed their kids on all the other DLC that they make. Skins, other characters. All that time takes work and effort for sure. But I mean, if you're already working on the game itself and you implement it firsthand, like within the game, by all means, it works out, right? But again, we have people that are so good at this stuff that they can, like, frame data was released for Guilty Gear Strive in beta. In the beta, people already had frame data or like rough outlines of frame data. So it's not like it's not unrealistic to have community driven frame data. And some would argue to say that gets a community talking. That gets them really invested into the fighting game, gets them kind of talking about new stuff, new tech, new stuff that they're finding. But does that give developers an excuse? Absolutely not. But again, I'm going off topic, I'm running into that tangent, is the expectation where I feel that it's bad is saying, I'm not going to play XY fighting game because it doesn't have frame data. Okay, but it has really good netcode and it has an amazing lobby system and amazing community behind it. Yeah, but it doesn't have frame data. You see that unrealistic expectation to see that broader scape, and this happens more frequently than you guys think. Hence why I'm talking about it, right? Is I'm not going to play this game because it doesn't have this specific thing. Or I'm not going to play this game because it has, I don't know, like Duinvo or whatever that DRM software is. Okay. I mean, hey man, it's your life. Do what you want to do. But I think it's an unfair process for somebody to say there's a third party software. Now the whole entirety of the whole integrity of the game is ruined because of this one thing. It's like Roman just said. Devs got to feed their kids, but the artists got to receive credit for what they have. Like, this is something that somebody put their heart and soul into. Whether you believe that or not, people do work on these games, and this is their livelihood. They draw, they voice act, they program. This stuff is not easy and it's not cheap. Right? So as far as expectations are concerned, it's more of a controversial opinion, and I understand that, and I'm willing to hear anybody out and talk with them and understand. Obviously, the devil's advocate, of course, because any kind of criticism is great as long as it's constructive. But when you set your expectations really, really high, and they become to the point where only you or it's in a personal taste, well,
T-Vikes Arbitrage
that's a bit rough, man.
said, consumers are the kings of unrealistic expectations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think this is why this is so important, because as a consumer, as a fellow consumer, or as a feller wow, as a fellow gamer myself, this is my kind of message to you, is that understand that a game will never amount to every single person's individual expectation. They have to appeal to a majority, and they have to appeal to an audience. Are you a part of that audience? Probably, right? You're a part of that audience, you're a part of the community, and you need to share and talk and speak with your community, and you need to get them on board about something that you want. Put in effort, right? Don't just expect something and be like, yeah, I expect you to do this, and then it's going to happen. It's like in a relationship. I expect my spouse or my brother or my sister or my mom to do this, but I'm not going to say anything. That doesn't do anything for you. That's, again, we go back to communication, right? Expectation and communication are just two sides of the same coin. They come together. Everything's great. You communicate your expectation, and people who are willing to work with you, they'll say, I can do that. And then your expectations are met. Or I can't do that. And then compromises are met, right? Compromise with yourself a little bit, right? Like, have a high expectation about something. Or, I'm sorry, have a base level expectation about something. Like, this is going to be an amazing, amazing game for me because I'm a fan. And then you have these other expectations on the side, like, I hope they implement this because they said they were talking about doing this. I hope it gets added. Or I hope that there was a really bad section in this game when it was gameplay mechanic wise, and I really hope they fix it. It's like a conversation I was having with a really good friend of mine about Breath of the Wild just last night. He was saying, I had a whole bunch of materials.
Said, I have an expectation of a future TGZ Blind Halo stream.
Yeah, and you'll get that. That expectation I can meet. I can meet that, Roman. Are you going to want to be a part of that stream? But I can meet that expectation for you. See? Communication. Tell me what you guys want, and I'll try to make it happen to the best of my ability. But anyway, what I was saying is, Breath of the Wild, right? He was going on about talking about how much materials he had. When like materials were put into the game, he was able to sell a bunch of materials, and then he was able to get the amount of rupees he needed to buy armor and all the upgrades. And then he just kept piling materials. Okay, that is a criticism, right? And then what he said was, I hope that Nintendo for the sequel is able to do something with those materials, maybe like add a crafting system or a repair system or something like that. That is a realistic expectation, and it's a hope. It's like, hey, I hope they add this because this would be a very logical thing to add, and it would be a very really cool way to, farm up materials if need be. But it's not, he wasn't saying, if it doesn't have this, I'm not going to play this game. So his expectations are still here. They're kind of here because he wants that new thing, right? They're still here, but they're still on a level of realistic. They're on a level of fashion of like, hey, this could be implemented into the game. Here's why, right? But again, I'm a guy on the internet, spouting my own opinions. Again, like I said, opinionated. My opinion, Xavier's opinion. I just feel that people get lost in their own hopes and dreams of expectation, and if it doesn't meet every single thing they desire, it is now the worst thing in the world. And I think that's such an unfortunate way of thinking. It's such an unfortunate mindset, and it's something that I feel that a lot of people get lost in the sea of just negativity when it comes to that, right? But Okay. But that's all I had to say, chat room. But give me a second. YouTube, thank you guys for so much for hanging out with me. If you guys have anything to say, just post in the comments down below. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that jazz. But if you guys really want to hang out and chat like Serge and Roman did here tonight, you can follow me at twitch.tv/blindgamer102. I stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I do a gamer's guidance almost every stream. And I come up with various different topics. If you do have a suggestion or a topic, you can join me at my Discord. My Discord link is in the description. You can recommend it there. You can also follow me at BlindGamer102 on Twitter and tweet me a suggestion. I'd be more than happy to talk about anything and everything when it comes down to it. Keep it respectful, obviously. I do have the sole right to deny that request if I don't feel that it's just something that doesn't fit my ideologies, because it's my stream. So, but again, if you guys want to hang out and chat with me, you may do so. 7:15 is when I start my stream, play a bit of video games, and then we end the stream with this segment. So I appreciate you guys. I love you guys very much. Remember, stay spicy out there, amigos on YouTube. See ya.